The Titans put their number one waiver claim priority spot to good use on Wednesday, claiming 4 guys, adding an outside undrafted free agent to the practice squad, and signing a vested veteran on Tuesday, actually. We're going to run through all the moves they made on Wednesday, which players were claimed and signed, which guys we think or know are heading to the practice squad. We have 11 more or less confirmed practice squad guys and 15 that we think will end up there out of the 16. This is the Music City Audible. Let's get to it. Welcome everyone to another episode of the Music City Audible podcast, presented by Sinkers Beverages, the premier wine, spirits, and beer store in East Nashville, in partnership with 440 Sports. I'm Justin Graver. With me, as always, Justin Melo. Justin, who in the world said this was a dead week for the NFL? I feel like this is the busiest week of training camp so far.
Yeah, we were expecting the Titans to, put that, as you put it, their standing against the waiver wire to good use at the number one overall priority, and they did. I think I've been saying for a while here, not that I'm not going to pat myself on the back for this, but I said 4 to 5. I said I'm not going to pat myself on the back. I said 4 to 5, right? Waiver claims is probably what they're going to make. 2 or 3 seems a little low. 6 plus seems high. Well, they came in right at 4. They sign a veteran in free agency, a vested veteran who didn't go through the process. So 5 total additions. Now I'll pat myself on the back since you dinged me. I was bang on, 4 to 5. It was 4 waiver claims, 1 veteran added. They landed right where I said they would. How are you?
I'm good because I proclaimed boldly on Twitter that I thought the number of waiver claims would be 4. I said I'm shooting my shot with 4 waiver claims. Now, I didn't necessarily expect an additional undrafted free agent from another team to come in on the practice squad. I wasn't exactly expecting a Shy Tuttle signing, for instance. However, 4 waiver claims is 4 waiver claims, so I'm going to take credit for that, even if I thought there would be 4 players added and I got lucky with the way I phrased it. Justin, let's get into this here. The Titans make a number of moves. The finalized version of the 53-man roster, as we knew going into the end of yesterday's podcast, we knew wasn't finalized. And today's roster, I would say, is still not finalized. I think there's still going to be some roster gymnastics going on here. But let's start with the 5 players that were added to the active roster, and then we'll get to the practice squad in a bit. The Titans claimed 4 guys, as we mentioned. Those 4 guys are cornerback Jalen Armour Davis, cornerback Samuel Womack, linebacker Dorian Mousey, and defensive end CJ Ravenel. They also signed defensive tackle Shy Tuttle. Justin, I'm going to turn it over to you for your incredible knowledge of all things football. Who the hell are these guys?
Well, Samuel Womack is a corner that played for the Colts last year. Very experienced player in terms of last season. Played nearly 700 defensive snaps for them. And if you're thinking they double up that corner, is this a special teams thing? Sam Womack didn't really play special teams last year at all. Like, they're bringing this guy in as a corner. He had about 680 snaps for them at cornerback last year. Started the year really well. I reached out to some of my trusted sources, reporters, writers in Indy to talk about him. Really strong. I mean, I actually tweeted, like, in week 6 against the Titans, not that they could throw the ball against anyone last year, but he allowed like 1 catch on 5 targets for 2 yards. And at that point in the season, he was one of Pro Football Focus's highest graded cornerbacks in coverage. Now, there is some caveats here, right? Like, he waned as the season progressed forward, started getting beat by double moves, is what one of my sources told me. And then they go through the regime change. He had 2 interceptions and 7 pass breakups, by the way. They go through the regime change this summer. Remember, he was playing under Gus Bradley last year. They hired a new defensive coordinator, very experienced guy in Lou Anarumo, who got fired in Cincinnati. Good defensive coordinator, in my opinion, but fielded one of the worst defenses I've ever seen in Cincinnati last year. And they bring him in, and I mean, I don't want to dog him because he's a good DC, I think, but it seems like he's doing things his way. Like, they're about to bring in Mike Hilton, who's like 32 years old and couldn't make a really bad Miami Dolphins cornerback room. They brought in Xavier Rhodes, who's like 32 and has looked to be on his last legs for years now. And he bumped this guy down the depth chart, Sam Womack. He likes them big, long, fast. He wants you to survive on an island. It's not really Sam Womack's game in all honesty. He's a little small. He's like 5'10", 5'11", 190. So he's not your 6'1", 6'2", long arm guy. One of my sources told me he's a better fit in soft zone than he is playing like aggressive man, which makes his fit here a little interesting because I do feel Denard Wilson likes aggressive corners, and we'll get into that in a second in Jalen Armour-Davis. But he's played a lot of ball. He's still young. He's played some good ball in spurts in Indianapolis. It just feels like he wasn't a fit there anymore. So I don't know if you want me to keep going or you want me to throw it back to you. Yeah.
Yeah, throw it back to me for a second because I think there's a couple interesting things here. Number one, Darrell Baker Jr. was a cornerback claimed off of waivers who was waived by the Indianapolis Colts last year. Interesting parallel there. Wonder if Womack can give them some sort of level of play like similar to what Darrell Baker Jr. was able to last year if called upon. And number two, to me, that's interesting is that there was a cornerback released by the Colts or waived or released, I'm not even sure, by the Colts that basically everyone on Titans Twitter, Titans fan, and most fans of most teams were hoping that their team would claim, and that was Juju Brents. Juju Brents may be more talented than Womack, but less ability to stay on the field the last couple of years. I think that's, with the dedication that this new regime has shown to signing and drafting players who have been on the field the majority of the time, do not miss a lot of games. Maybe that's why the Titans weren't super interested in Juju Brents, because I can see it now in the comments. Oh, the Titans claimed the wrong Colts cornerback.
And Brent's got claimed, by the way. He's headed to the Miami Dolphins, who had a terrible cornerback room. But speaking of guys that can't necessarily stay on the field, they did take a chance on one of them. It just wasn't Juju Brents. It's corner Jalen Armour-Davis, the other one they claimed out of Baltimore. This one makes a little more sense to me in terms of rolling the dice, although Womack is probably safer and might end up better. But it feels like the range of outcomes is broader for Jalen Armour-Davis because Denard Wilson knows him. He coached him for like a year in Baltimore previously, so you love that connection already.
Right.
I immediately look at the body type, like 6'1", 200 pounds, ran in the 4.3s at the NFL Combine. Like, strikes me as a Denard Wilson cornerback. Third-round pick out of Alabama a couple of years ago. He does a lot of pedigree here, but he hasn't gotten a lot of run, and he's had some injuries that he's had to battle through. And it feels like Baltimore were just kind of ready to close this chapter because they had a UDFA corner make the 53-man roster that they chose, I was told by a source in Baltimore, essentially directly over Jalen Armour-Davis. So it just feels like they were ready to move on. But he gets a fresh start here. He's got a lot of natural talent. He's got terrific size. Like, he's big, he's strong, he's not long, actually. Oddly enough for his body type, he's got short arms. But he's big, he's strong, and he could run. And those guys tend to get a shot, especially when you're still a 25-year-old corner that went to Alabama. So curious to see what they get out of him. Is he first guy up? Is it Sam Womack? I mean, out of those two, I imagine Darrell Baker Jr. still starts ahead of both of them, but that's going to be fluid. Like, Darrell Baker Jr. is not locked into anything. If these two or one of them look better than he does, I'm going to end this conversation on Jalen Armour-Davis with making a note on the corners in general. This now brings them up to 7. We'll talk more about Gabe Jeudy-Lally, who they let go, but this brings them up to 7. It's a pretty big number, so it scares me a little. Like, is L'Jarius Sneed healthy? Is he going to start? Are they still going to shift him to IR before week 1? Like, 7 feels a little overstuffed on the active roster at corner, but that's what they've got after making a bunch of moves.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know how the actual vision for this roster will look. I would say a couple weeks from now, a couple years from now, when Mike Borgonzi's really been able to put his stamp on it alongside Chad Brinker, and hopefully Brian Callahan is still the head coach in a couple of years. But a couple weeks is what I'm more interested in because, as people are calling it, roster gymnastics, right? Like, there's going to be guys going back and forth from the roster to the practice squad to waivers to back to the roster, back to practice squad, etc., as they sort things out here and get guys healthy and lose guys to injury, which unfortunately, will happen at some point in the season. So I'd be curious to see if they still have 7 corners, heading into week 3, or if this is a temporary thing as they try to figure out some other roster math. I will say just quickly, I last night finally got around to watching Mike Borgonzi on Chris Long's podcast.
I watched it too.
Really great stuff in there. But what stuck out to me in terms of relating to this conversation is when he was talking about guys with traits and taking chances on guys with traits and bringing them in and having a coaching staff that you feel confident can develop those traits into good players. He mentioned like what L'Jarius Sneed's height, weight, speed build coming out of college was at Louisiana Tech. And this guy Jalen Armour Davis, he strikes me as a traits guy. You mentioned his 40 time, he's got the height, he's got the speed, things that can make you a good physical corner on the outside. Like I'm wondering, I don't expect a lot from any waiver claim because there's a reason they got cut by another team. But I will say, if you're going to get cut by a team, Baltimore is stacked with talent, and not making the Baltimore Ravens is different from not making the Titans or the Saints or the Browns. The Browns have talent, just not at quarterback that we think. So it's an interesting guy and like a potential developmental project for this staff here that we're not going to count on him this season, but if he gets in the lineup and makes some plays from time to time, gets beat from time to time too, but makes some plays from time to time, I won't be necessarily surprised.
Darrell Baker Jr. did it last year. Like I'd say he plays great snaps, so you never know.
Yeah.
The next two, so I expected them to claim multiple corners. Like I don't know if I outright said it on yesterday's pod.
I think you did.
Now. Yeah, well, I'll go more on the record because it's in the past now. But I had a source tell me they're going to claim 2 to 3 corners. Like that's what's going to happen tomorrow, and they end up going to get 2 of them. The next 2 moves, I would say, were more surprising in my opinion, to a degree. Talked about claiming guys off the Baltimore Ravens. Well, Jalen Armour Davis wasn't the only one. They go out and get CJ Ravenel.
Well, it's interesting, Justin, because he literally has Raven in his name, and he played for the Ravens. Big mistake not letting that continue, but it's pronounced Ravenel.
That's what I thought. So they get CJ Ravenel, also off the Ravens. Second year UDFA, spent all of last year on their practice squad, but played a lot in the preseason this year and actually played pretty good. He had 7 quarterback pressures on 69 pass rushing snaps. There was one game, I think it was the Colts game. If you go to my Twitter timeline, I've tweeted a lot today, but scroll through.
I'll throw it in the vid. I'll put it right here.
I reposted like a minute-long cut-up that someone had done on Twitter of him just getting a lot of pressure in that game. The reason this one surprised me, a young guy, looks like he's got some talent, violent hands, he looks to be quick off the snap, is when they signed Shy Tuttle, who I guess I'll just talk about at the same time. They signed Shy Tuttle as a vested veteran. He's got a lot of experience, played for the Carolina Panthers last year. I'll be honest with you, did not play well at all for the Panthers last year. It was pretty bad.
Nobody played well for the Panthers last year. The Panthers defense last season gave up the most points in an NFL season in the history of the league, and the Titans now have 2 guys that were part of that defense in Xavier Woods and Shy Tuttle.
Yeah, good point. But they bring in Shy Tuttle. I expected them to make one move at D-tackle. So when they made the Shy Tuttle move, that didn't surprise me, okay? They're going to replace Timmy Horn with him, which they officially did. But that's what I was expecting. One D-tackle, and they'd replace Timmy Horn. And that happened with Shy Tuttle. They bring in CJ Ravenel. He's listed as like a D-end at first. I'm fooled. I jumped the gun. Oh, this is their edge waiver claim. Well, he's not. He's 6'5", 300 pounds. So, and you watch the cut up. This is an interior player. This is like a 3-tech type of player. So, why do they have 6 D tackles on the 53-man roster right now? You and I think, ranked D tackle as their best position on the entire roster, right? Like Jeffrey Simmons, Tavondre Sweat. These guys are healthy. Sebastian Joseph Day. They kept James Lynch for now. I like to think James Lynch is a lock to stay. I don't know if that changes now that they've got 6, but 6 feels like a lot. They go out and get Shy Tuttle, and they get CJ Ravenel. I'm such a nerd. I started doing the mental gymnastics. I'm like, well, when they signed Shy Tuttle, they didn't know for sure what they were going to do on the waiver wire, but they had the number 1 priority. So if they wanted CJ Ravenel, they knew they would get him. So just interesting to me that they made both of those moves and bring the D-tackle room to an overstuffed 6, in my opinion.
I agree, and that's part of the thing that I was just talking about with the cornerback position is let's see what the room looks like in 2 weeks. But those are good notes. And Justin, as we've been talking here, the Titans just announced that they have signed 14 players to the team's practice squad. So if we want to do a separate episode, we could. I think we could just get into this on this episode since it's out and we can react to it. And Easton Freeze has reported 16 players. You and I had gathered 15 names. According to Jim Wyatt, they got 14. official with 3 open spots. That's 17 players. Yes, one of the 14 official from Jim Wyatt is International Pathway Player Exemption player Thomas Odukoya at tight end. So we'll get to that in just a second. Once we finish going through these waiver claims, we wanted to let you know so you have a chance to look at it before we get there in this podcast, and also let our audience know, since we didn't tease it off the top, we actually have an unofficial official practice squad, because there are still spots to be filled. Easton reported 16 names. You and I had 15 names. Jim Wyatt has only put 14 names on paper. So we'll get to that in just a moment. Justin, do you want to, in the meantime, move us on here as we move away from CJ Ravenel and Shai Tuttle and talk about linebacker Dorian Mousey?
Yeah, this one surprised me a little bit in the sense that he's an undrafted rookie. I did not expect them to add an undrafted rookie directly to the 53-man roster, but that's what they've done here. We thought they would claim a linebacker, and they did. But I thought they'd go the experienced route, especially if you want them to play special teams. Now, I'm sure that they obviously combed through the preseason tape, which, by the way, I haven't seen anyone notice. He played against the Titans. Week 3 of the preseason was Titans-Vikings. So they obviously noticed him there. They would have seen him playing a little, special teams in the preseason. But that's a small sample size. So I expected a more experienced guy here. But he led Auburn in tackles last year. He was the Vikings' second highest graded defender throughout the preseason. So there's some upside here. I'm just a little surprised that they didn't grab someone a bit more experienced.
Yeah, I agree. But is that it? Those are the 4 waiver claims and Shai Tuttle, right? We did it?
That's correct. Yeah, that's all of them.
All right, so let's run through the players who were then released to make room for these guys. Some of them we expected, some of them we did not expect, and they were, kind of surprising. But I think there were some, straight up player for player, position for position swaps. And then there's some roster gymnastics going on there as well. So the guys who were waived include Timmy Horn to make way for Shai Tuttle. That one makes sense. Gabe Judy-Lawley to make way for one of the 2 corners. That one makes sense. Linebacker Curtis Jacobs to make way for the UDFA linebacker we just talked about. And John Ojukwu. Interesting. They waived a tackle, John Ojukwu. They also released, not waived because he's been in the league for 7 years, center Corey Levin, potentially starting center in week 1, depending on Lloyd Cushenberry's health. Corey Levin has been released. So an interesting move. I would say you guys were talking about it in the group chat while I was busy this morning, but you guys called it a very risky move for the Titans, because what if they lose Corey Levin? What if Mike Vrabel reaches out and wants to bring him into New England or something like that? What if he gets claimed? He can't get claimed. What if he gets an offer to join somebody's 53-man roster? It could happen, but let's be real. They're not doing this unless they have full assurance that they're getting Corey Levin back on the practice squad, able to elevate him if they need to for that first week, or put him back on the active roster at some point before week 1, depending on Lloyd Cushenberry's recovery. I think they are going to need Corey Levin active in week 1, whether or not Cushenberry is cleared to play, because if Cushenberry is cleared to play, that doesn't mean he's going to make it through the whole game. What if he has a setback in the first quarter and you got to throw Jackson Slater in there at center as a rookie 6th rounder in week 1 of the season against a really tough defense? No, you need Corey Levin active in week 1, whether he starts or not. So I'm not even reacting to this. It's just like, okay, this is how they're moving the roster around. I'm not concerned at all.
Roster gymnastics. They're incredibly confident they're going to get Corey Levin back on the practice squad. And I think they feel similarly about John Ojukwu. Now, if I'm reading the tea leaves correctly, and I've done some digging, waiving Ojukwu ahead of Crenshaw Dixon, the UDFA tackle who made the roster, qualifies as a bit of a surprise. But I think the Titans think they can sneak Ojukwu through waivers likelier than they can Crenshaw Dixon. I mean, that's why they didn't waive Crenshaw Dixon initially off the 53. They thought he was going to get claimed. Now with Ojukwu, they've waived him multiple times in the past, right? This is his 3rd year on the roster. They've waived him multiple times, and they've always been able to get him back on the practice squad. So I will say Ojoku's a bit riskier than Levin, but they're playing the odds game there. They had good intel that Crenshaw Dixon would have gotten claimed. They feel like Ojukwu won't because he never has been, and they've put him through waivers a bunch of times. Pretty confident they're getting both of them back. They've just got to wait a day, right? Because you filed the paperwork to cut them. You have to file the paperwork for the practice squad the following day.
Yeah, I mean, I would expect he's back too, but I definitely think it's riskier than Levin. Levin cannot be claimed, and that makes all the difference. It's Levin's choice where he goes. Ajukwu could be claimed, and if he's claimed, it's not his choice anymore. I mean, I guess he could still not sign a contract and get back into free agent. It's just a convoluted mess there. So I'm slightly more concerned, but the point that he has passed waivers multiple times, I'm just going to trust that the staff knows what they're doing with this, and I'm not going to panic about that either. The other two guys, a little bit more obvious, Curtis Jacobs and Gabe Judy-Lawley, they added guys at their position who they view as better, and we'd expect that they probably will end up on the practice squad, but they have to process their own waiver day before they can sign on the practice squad. So that's, we got to wait till tomorrow's waivers process. But we can get into the 14 official players on the practice squad and speculate on who we think the final 3 spots are. Here's the list as announced by Jim Wyatt. Kendall Brooks, and you had a lot of these, Justin. Sorry, before I get into it.
I broke a ton of these. That's correct.
You broke a ton of these, and that's why everyone should be following you on Twitter at JustinM_NFL, and that's why everyone should buy your book, honestly. Titans of the South. It's right here on the shelf behind me. TitansoftheSouth.com. You can get your version, your copy of the 2025 special edition re-release until Saturday, August 31st. Now, Justin, I don't know if you're going to be able to call the publisher up if demand is massive on September 1st. I think people just kind of have to just deal with it if they miss the deadline here. August 31st is a deadline for a reason. You want that 2025 bonus chapter. You want that free gift that this order comes with, the illustrated player trading card of the Titans rookie quarterback. You want free shipping, all the book and shipping, all for $25 at titansofthesouth.com.
With
US,
the free gift. Yeah, with the free gift on
with
top.
the free gift, US only. Sorry, we haven't been clarifying that as much recently and had some comments about it. You must be in the United States. This only ships to the United States. Apologies for that. The original version edition of the book is available at any bookseller in the US or out of it, but the 2025 special edition, titansofthesouth.com. Go, get your copy. What are you doing?
I want to quickly add, you guys have been asking for updates. I was told by the publisher, as of this Friday, we should have 250 copies shipped. So hopefully, if you're watching this and you bought it, you'll be one of the 250. Mom and pop operation here, but we'll have about 250 shipped by this Friday, which means it's coming really, really soon to you. If you haven't bought it yet and you're about to, obviously, you'll be getting it in September, right? You're going to give us some time to get through all the first orders, but you'll be getting it really soon either way. And I will say, August 31st is the last day, but you guys have, orders have been flying in this last week. We're genuinely humbled and shocked by how many of you have been purchasing the book over the last week. 31st is the plan. That's the last day. That's what I was told. He was cutting off orders on the 31st. Last day to get the 2025 version, including your player trading card, your illustrated card of the Titans starting quarterback. You're going to be blown away when you see that thing.
Can't wait for that to arrive at my house, at all your houses, and everyone who's ordered. So if you haven't ordered yours yet, again, you have till Saturday. Go do it. Also, check out sinkersbeverages.com. Shout out to Sinkers for supporting the channel and the Sinkers Beverages In Crowd for free. If you join the In Crowd, you get access to allocated wines and spirits, exclusive events, early access to barrel releases, and more. So check out sinkersbeverages.com. Premier wine, spirits, and beer store in East Nashville is also available for delivery on Uber Eats, making it the most convenient way to get the premium wine, spirits, and beer in East Nashville. Justin, let's turn our attention to the practice squad. And now this happened while we're recording, so we're kind of figuring this out in real time a little bit. Of the guys that were announced by the Titans, the official Titans announcement of the 14 players who are currently on the practice squad, Clay Webb is not included. Talk to us about Clay Webb. What was reported with Clay Webb on Wednesday morning, and why is he not on this list?
So there was a beat reporter in Denver where he was playing, I believe, as a rookie undrafted free agent that said that Clay Webb was going to be headed to the Titans practice squad. So my guess is the reason he's not on this list is when you're an outsider, the paperwork just might take a bit longer, might take an extra day. Like no one on this list was not with the Titans originally, right? So I expect that report will be accurate. Clay Webb will eventually join the Titans practice squad. Also missing from this list, of course, that Jim Wyatt put out is Corey Levin and John Njoku, who we just discussed. Confident they'll be re-added. But Clay Webb, really athletic. Again, rookie UDFA, was at the Senior Bowl this past year. I thought looked good, put up some great pre-draft testing numbers throughout the process. That's a good ad. I thought Clay Webb was draftable. He went undrafted. ended up in Denver, played really well in the preseason, by the way. He'll be a really good addition to this practice squad.
Yeah, I agree, and that's a position that it's always good to have extra guys on the practice squad. Let's run through the full list here, Justin. I'm just organizing my notes here because I had the list of 15 that we were able to deduce, that you did a lot of great reporting to help deduce, and I'm cross-checking it live here with Jim Wyatt's list so I don't accidentally say somebody twice or miscount. But there are some interesting names here, maybe guys that we were expecting, maybe guys that we weren't expecting. Definitely at least two that I wasn't expecting. But let's run through that list now, starting with the wide receiver position, where they have decided to bring back for the, 27th consecutive season, longer than the Titans have even been in Nashville. Mason Kinsey is back on the practice squad. Just kidding, obviously, about the length. You know, Justin, Mason Kinsey tweeted out that Simpsons meme where the guy's getting thrown out of the bar and then he reappears back in the bar. It's a 3-panel meme. And yesterday, Kinsey tweeted out the top 2 panels. You know, the missing panel is the one where the guy reappears back in the bar behind the guy who just threw him out. Well, on Wednesday, Kinsey tweets the last panel, quote tweets his original tweet, and tweets the last panel. In a group chat with you, I literally called that he would do exactly that, and then he did it, so that was pretty funny to me. Continuing, Xavier Restrepo, Titans fan favorite and Cam Ward's quote-unquote best friend, back in the receiver room there on the practice squad. And, as we discussed yesterday, very expectedly, James Prochet back on the practice squad. Any thoughts on these 3 receivers before we talk about other positions?
Well, fans will be thrilled that they kept Restrepo. That's the obvious one, right? He didn't get claimed as we expected. He gets to stay in Nashville, might get elevated at some point, sticks with Cam Ward. Mason Kinsey, look, it's all kidding aside, the scout team is a valuable aspect of the practice squad, and he really commits himself to that role. Like Brian Callahan, as we all know, loves him, appreciates his work ethic, admires the drive that he shows up to, and takes his job very, very seriously. The third one, James Prochet, is a big win, I think, because we were surprised when they cut him. I think he's a candidate to get elevated week 1 and be the starting punt returner. Not elevated to the 53-man roster, but one of the standard game day elevations. You get 4 of them for each player from the practice squad to the game day roster. And I'd be surprised if he wasn't fielding punts in week 1 for the Titans.
I'd be surprised if he wasn't fielding punts most of the season, half the season. Like, I think after those first 3 weeks or whatever, when they're starting to run out of practice squad elevations for him, that he'll eventually make his way back onto the 53-man roster. TBD, if somebody else proves themselves as a capable punt returner, Shimere Dike, looking at you, then maybe not, but we'll see. Trevor Siemian added to the practice squad, obvious expected one there. Titans need to have a third quarterback who knows the system in case anything happens to Cam Ward. Andrew Rupsich, we heavily hypothesized on yesterday's pod that he would be brought back to the practice squad, and he has been. The 2 running backs that I had, both of these on my initial practice squad projection back on Monday, which feels like 25 months ago at this point. I had Jordan Mims and Jamar Jefferson back on the squad there. Titans might need one of those guys on week 1 because they won't have Tajay Spears, and they have 3 running backs without Tajay Spears, so maybe they don't, but we'll see there. They have, obviously, Tony Pollard, Khalil Mullings, and Julius Chestnut. We'll see if those guys are called upon at any point this year. This one was interesting to me. Ali Gay was not reported by anybody until the Titans announced these 14 guys, and Ali Gay has been brought back to the practice squad. Not a surprise. It was just like the way the morning was trending with all the news coming out. I expected Ali Gay to be in that group, and he wasn't. But he has made the roster. Any comments on any of those guys?
I'm glad they got both running backs on there. I think that was a necessity with Tajay Spears, on IR. Then Khalil Mullings banged up. They might need one of those guys early, Mims or Jefferson on the roster. Trevor Siemian, quarterback 3, I think makes a lot of sense. We expected that. And then Ali Gay, who you just mentioned as well, is big, is long. He just missed out on a roster spot, beat out by Jalen Harrell. But they'll continue working with Ali Gay because they like the traits.
Yeah, I agree. And then let's round it out. The last 6 guys here, 3, count them, 3 defensive tackles on the practice squad. 2 of them UDFAs this year, Isaiah Rakes and Cam Horsley, also Carlos Watkins. And then in the secondary, safety Kendall Brooks, veteran cornerback Amani Oruwariye, who I'm a little surprised to see on this list, and tight end Thomas Odukoya, who does give them an exemption, an extra spot. He doesn't count against the 16 number, allows them to carry 17 on the practice squad, so it's sort of a why not if he doesn't have another option, sort of a why not keep him on the practice squad here.
Yeah, I thought, Rakes and Horsley, those made me glad. I thought they looked good during the preseason, the UDFA D tackles. Carlos Watkins gives them an experienced option at that spot if they, rather go that route, if they've got to elevate one at some point. Amani Arurier, I think, is the big surprise to me. Although I'm wondering out loud now, like, they waived Gabe Jeudy-Lally today. Could he be a placeholder?
I was thinking the exact same thing.
Yeah, maybe if they can get Jeudy-Lally on there, they replace Arurier. Because this is a full list. Like, they've got, assuming they add Clay Webb, John Njoku, and Corey Levin, who are the only three who are not on this list that we believe are going to round out this list, there's no room for a Gabe Jeudy-Lally. So I do wonder if they'll replace the veteran corner with him. But other than that, I'm personally pleased with this list. I am. I think it's a pretty strong practice. Like I said, a couple of guys like Rupsich and Odakoya, I didn't know they'd be back. I like the UDFA tackles. I like Kendall Brooks at safety a lot. I thought both of those running backs ran the ball well in the preseason. I thought Trevor Simeon's a quarterback 3. I wanted them to keep Xavier Restrepo. James Prochet is probably the biggest win out of anything here because he was our most surprising cut. If they round this out like we expect them to with Njoku, Levin, and Clay Webb, this is a strong practice squad.
Yeah. So I wanted to say there are 3 spots left. There's 14 that have officially signed, which leaves 3 spots. Again, Thomas Odakoya gives them that 17th instead of 16. Most teams get 16 unless they have that International Pathway Player Program guy. So yes, those 3. We very much expect Clay Webb, who's reported by a reputable beat writer for the Broncos that Clay Webb is signing with the Titans practice squad. Again, as you said a few minutes ago, he probably has to fly to Nashville, pass a physical, and sign the papers before they can publish his name as an official member of the squad. Levin and Njoku waived on Wednesday, released/waived on Wednesday. Levin released, Njoku waived. Njoku has to clear waivers before he can sign to the practice squad. Levin theoretically could sign back to the practice squad anytime he wants. And so it actually is a little surprising he's not back here yet because he is just a standard free agent. He doesn't have to go through waivers.
I wonder if the paperwork, though, has to be like 24 hours apart.
Yeah, I'm sure something has to happen. Although, Shai Tuttle was signed right away, but he was signed to the active roster, not to the practice squad on Tuesday. So it could be some different. I mean, it's probably technicalities and bookkeeping and like red tape or whatever. We expect those guys to be back. Now, to your earlier point, does Gabe Jeudy-Lally replace Amani Oruwariye? Because Jeudy-Lally now has to go through waivers, and there is a chance that somebody claims him. And if he does get claimed, the Titans probably don't want to miss out on having Oruwariye on the practice squad. So they sign him as a placeholder, as a backup option, hoping for Jeudy-Lally to clear waivers, and then they can add him back and get rid of Oruwariye. Maybe they want to, maybe they don't. We don't know. But I will say it would be surprising to me, Justin, if Curtis Jacobs, who survived the first wave of cuts on Tuesday, didn't end up back on the practice squad because every other player here, outside every one of the 14 that we just officially announced, was waived on Tuesday, and Curtis Jacobs wasn't. Curtis Jacobs survived Tuesday, was waived Wednesday. It'd be so odd to me if a guy that they felt was more important to keep on the roster on Tuesday didn't even end up on the practice squad. So that means that one other player here would have to get cut, or it would have to mean Clay Webb isn't true, or means Clay Webb is actually replacing Rupsich, O-line for O-line swap or something like that. Or they don't keep all 3 defensive tackles, or they don't keep both running backs, or they don't keep 3 receivers. Like somebody else is getting cut here, and it's either Curtis Jacobs just will be gone from the Titans this year, or one of these 14 won't survive. Right.
Yeah, I think that's the way that this is going. But expect more roster gymnastics and math in the coming days, and you and I will be here to cover it.
Absolutely. We thought we would have a full episode to talk about this practice squad, and instead we were surprised with this news today. Titans hitting us early. I mean, why even announce this yet? They're just going to have to announce this again tomorrow.
I'm sorry to end with any sense of confusion, but Tom Pelissero, I don't know if you saw this, he did tweet, this was 2 hours ago, though. The Titans are signing former Broncos guard Clay Webb after he cleared waivers, per source. He didn't mention practice squad or anything, but I believe the Broncos beat writer had clarified practice squad.
He didn't. He said it was expected that Clay Webb would make it back to practice squad. Instead, he's signing with Titans. But if that's the case, then one other guy that's on the active roster has to get cut. The math is not adding up here. Yeah. We're reacting too soon, Justin. We need to let another 24 hours pass and let all this stuff clear itself up before we get behind a mic. But here we are talking into one and not really knowing exactly what we're talking about because the math doesn't make sense. So we'll see. It's all going to shake out. There's nothing to panic. I'm not panicking, Justin. Are you panicking? I'm not panicking.
I'm not panicking at all. I mean, with 3 spots on the practice squad, it would make a lot of sense if those 3 were Clay Webb, Njoku, and Corey Levin. But we'll wait this out, and we'll be back tomorrow or the day after, I'm sure, to talk about the latest updates that's going on here.
I'm going to close this out, Justin, with a trivia question for you. Let's test your knowledge here. This is courtesy of a John Glennon tweet, so I didn't come up with this or look this up on my own. I'm stealing this straight from Twitter and John Glennon specifically. Justin, how many times has Mason Kinsey been waived by the Titans, and how many times has he been signed to the practice squad? Those are not the same number. They are one number apart. How many times has he been waived? How many times has he been brought back to the practice squad?
He's been waived 7 times, brought back to the practice squad 6 times.
Ooh, you were so close. He's been waived 8 times and brought back to the practice squad 7 times. So good for Mason Kinsey, continuing to stay employed. And as you said, I mean, he's won over multiple coaching staffs over those 8 times and always been brought back. So there you go. All right, that'll do it for this episode. Thanks again to everyone for tuning in. Make sure you like the video. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Keep pushing us towards our goal. We have like a week and a half to get over 100 new subs. Justin, I honestly don't know how we're going to do that unless the stat projection video just like brings in 100 subs on its own. But you guys could help us. You guys really could help us by mashing that subscribe button. I hate using the word mash, but I'm doing it sort of ironically, like as a joke. Like I don't really mean like, hey, mash that button. I'm sort of like, mash the button. You know what I mean? But sorry, I'm getting on a tangent here. We're wrapping up. We're saying goodbye. We appreciate everyone. Drop a comment below, like the video, subscribe to the channel. Thanks to Sinkers Beverages, TitansOftheSouth.com. You have till Saturday to get your special 2025 edition of the Titans of the South book. And that's it. Justin, we'll be back soon. Probably tomorrow. No guarantees. Just like, you know, life in the NFL, there's no guarantees, but maybe. So y'all stay tuned and subscribe to the channel and you'll see it as soon as a new video comes out. Until then, you guys stay safe out there and tighten up. You guys, not y'all.
A Broadway sports media production.